While China built a manufacturing empire for 30 years, Vietnam is stealing it in just 1 decade, and China can't do anything about it. In 2025, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in modern history, manufacturers are running away from China, the world's factory, and they're all heading to the same place, Vietnam. But here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't just a shift. It's a complete manufacturing revolution. And it's happening at lightning speed. Picture this: Samsung, Apple, Intel, Nike, Foxconn, the biggest names you can think of. They're all setting up massive operations in Vietnam right now. In just the first 10 months of 2025, Vietnam pulled in $31.5 billion in foreign investment, a 15.6% surge from last year. That's not just growth. That's a stampede. But it gets crazier. Vietnam's economy is now sprinting past 7.5% growth per year, the fastest in all of Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, China? They're struggling to hit 5%. The student is officially outperforming the master. So what's Vietnam's secret? 3 words: China plus 1. Here's how it works. After the US-China trade war exploded, American companies faced brutal tariffs on Chinese goods. But they needed a backup plan, a plan B that was close to China, cheaper than China. Without the geopolitical drama, enter Vietnam. And the numbers are insane. Labor costs: Vietnamese workers earn $250 to $400 per month. Chinese workers? $500 to $800. That's a 50% savings every single month. Hourly wages: Vietnam, $3 per hour. China, $6.50 per hour. You're literally paying half the price for the same work. But here's the real kicker. Vietnam isn't just cheaper. It's strategically smarter. Vietnam has signed 18 major free trade agreements, including the CPTPP with 11 Pacific nations and the EVFTA with Europe. These deals eliminate 99% of tariffs on exports. Translation: Vietnamese factories can ship products to Europe, Japan, Canada, and Australia with 0 tariffs, while Chinese factories get slammed with fees. It's like having a VIP pass to the world's richest markets while your competitor waits in line. And companies are noticing. Fast. Let's talk about who's actually relocating. Samsung already manufactures 50% of its smartphones in Vietnam. Not some. Half. Apple. Through Foxconn, they're ramping up iPhone production in Vietnam. Their Vietnamese operations are now part of a 35 supplier network with Intel. Their facility in Ho Chi Minh City is now their largest assembly and test plant in the entire world, handling more than half of Intel's global chip output and employing over 6,000 workers. Nike and Adidas, Vietnam, now produces the majority of their global footwear. This isn't a trickle. This is a flood. In 2025 alone, Vietnam's trade with the US is shattering records. We're talking about exports surging past $120 billion annually. Exports to China? Up 34% to over $8 billion. Vietnam is becoming the assembly line for the entire world. Now, you might be thinking, but Vietnam's infrastructure can't compete with China, right? Wrong. Vietnam is going all in on infrastructure, blitzing through construction to hit a massive milestone. 3,000 kilometers of operational expressways by the end of 2025. That's double what they had just a few years ago. Ho Chi Minh City investing 81.8 trillion Vietnamese dong in seaport infrastructure through 2030 major port expansions in Haiphong, cutting shipping times and costs. A new luxury rail link between Hanoi and Haiphong, boosting freight connectivity. Vietnam is building the superhighways of the future and doing it fast. But Vietnam isn't stopping at clothing and phones. They're going high-tech. Semiconductors. The tiny chips that power everything from your phone to fighter jets. While they've mastered assembly for Intel, Vietnam has a bigger target: self-reliance. They just launched a massive national semiconductor strategy to build their first true chip fabrication plants by 2030. They've already attracted $11.6 billion in semiconductor investments with over 170 projects from global tech giants this year alone. Their goal? To design, manufacture, and test essential semiconductor chips, moving from assembly to actual chip fabrication. Vietnam is climbing the value chain faster than anyone predicted. They're not just assembling products anymore. They're preparing to print the brains that go inside them. Here's something most people miss: geography. Vietnam shares a border with China. That means Chinese suppliers can easily relocate across the border. Same supply chains, different country label. Manufacturers get Chinese efficiency without the US tariffs. It's the ultimate arbitrage play. Plus, Vietnam's population is young and tech-savvy. Nearly 30% of workers now have technical degrees or certificates, up 1% year over year. They're building a skilled workforce at breakneck speed. Let's break down Vietnam's 2025 performance. GDP growth, 7.85%, fastest in Southeast Asia. Total exports, $391 billion in first 10 months, up 16.2% year over year. FDI stock, over $322 billion, equivalent to two-thirds of Vietnam's entire GDP. Manufacturing FDI, $14.07 billion in new investments from 3,321 projects. Trade surplus, running a $10 billion trade surplus, exports exceeding imports. These aren't projections. These are results. Vietnam is delivering real growth, real jobs, and real returns for investors. Now, Vietnam isn't perfect. They face challenges. Logistics costs still need improvement. Currently, 17 to 18% of GDP versus global average of 12%. Skilled labor shortages in advanced manufacturing. US scrutiny over potential transshipment, relabeling Chinese goods as Vietnamese. But here's the thing. Vietnam is aware of these issues and actively fixing them. Their new national logistics strategy aims to cut costs to 12 to 15% of GDP by 2035, while expanding logistics services by 12 to 15% annually. They're not ignoring problems, they're solving them. Here's what this really means. For 40 years, China was the only option for manufacturing. If you wanted to make products at scale, you went to China. Period. But Vietnam is breaking that monopoly. They're proving you can have lower costs than China, better trade access than China, less political risk than China, faster growth than China. Vietnam is showing the world there's a new game in town. And this matters because it redistributes global economic power. Manufacturing equals jobs, equals wealth, equals influence. Vietnam is positioning itself as a critical player in the 21st century economy. So is Vietnam beating China? Not yet. China's manufacturing base is massive. They're still the world's largest. But Vietnam is doing something China can't stop: capturing the future. Every company that diversifies to Vietnam is a company that's less dependent on China. Every factory that opens in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City is a factory that's not in Shenzhen or Shanghai. And as tensions between the US and China continue, that trend will only accelerate. Vietnam's government targets 8% growth for 2025 and double-digit growth from 2026 to 2030. They need $1.4 trillion in investment to hit those goals. And based on current momentum, they're going to get it. Vietnam isn't just stealing China's lunch, they're building their own factory. And they're calling it the new Tiger of Asia. The question isn't if Vietnam will become a manufacturing superpower. The question is, how fast? Subscribe for more breakdowns on the forces reshaping the global economy.